The war room was filled with the soft glow of holographic displays. Commander Taeyang stared at the red markers that covered the star map. Each red dot represented a world that the Void Swarm had consumed. There were so many red dots now, too many. Another colony just went dark, said Quan from his station. His voice was tired. They were all tired. 30 years of fighting would do that to anyone. That makes 17 worlds lost this month. Taeyang's forearms tensed. He was alien, a species that had once controlled 50 star systems. Now they barely held on to 10. The Galactic Coalition wasn't doing much better. Every species in known space was losing this war. How long until they reach our homeworld? Taeyang asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. 6 months, maybe 7 if we're lucky. Quan pulled up new data on his screen. The council is meeting tomorrow. They're going to discuss surrender terms. Surrender? Taeyang's voice rose. The swarm doesn't take prisoners. They consume everything. They'll eat our worlds down to the bedrock. I know. Quan looked defeated. But what choice do we have? We're outnumbered 10-1. Every battle costs us ships we can't replace. The mathematics don't lie, Commander. We're going to lose. Taeyang wanted to argue, but the numbers were clear. The Void Swarm was unlike any enemy the galaxy had ever faced. They were massive insect-like creatures that traveled in bioships grown from living tissue. They didn't negotiate. They didn't stop. They just consumed world after world, growing stronger with each victory. He walked to the observation window. Outside, his fleet floated in formation. 200 ships. It seemed like a lot until you remembered the swarm had thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Nobody knew for sure anymore? There has to be something, Taeyang said quietly. Some weapon we haven't tried. Some tactic we missed. We've tried everything. Quan stood and joined him at the window. Energy weapons, kinetic rounds, biological warfare, even quantum destabilizers. Nothing stops them for long. Taeyang noticed Quan was holding a data tablet. What's that? Oh. Quan looked almost embarrassed. I was going through the old archives, looking for anything that might help. I found some strange files. Ancient stuff from before the coalition was formed. And I found stories. Legends, really. About a species called humans. Taeyang had heard the name before. Every child in the galaxy knew the old tales. Humans were mythical warriors from a lost world called Earth. The stories said they were unstoppable in battle, fearless, that they could survive wounds that would kill any other species, that they fought with a fury that terrified even their allies. Those are just stories to scare children, Taeyang said. Humans aren't real. I thought so too. Quan activated his tablet. But look at this. These aren't fairy tales. These are military records, battle reports, ship manifests. They're 500 years old, but they're real documents. The hologram showed images of strange beings. They stood on 2 legs like many species, but something about them looked different. Dangerous. The records described battles where human forces fought against impossible odds. And won. They disappeared during something called the Great Silence, Quan continued. All at once, every human ship, every human station just stopped responding. Some records say they destroyed themselves. Others say they went into hiding. Nobody knows. Even if they were real, they're gone now. Taeyang wanted to feel hope, but hope was dangerous in war. Dead or hiding makes no difference to us. But what if they're not? Quan's eyes showed a spark of something Taeyang hadn't seen in years. Possibility. What if they're still out there? What if we could find them? That's insane. Taeyang turned away. We're fighting for survival. We don't have time to chase myths. An alarm blared across the ship. Emergency lights flashed red. Contact, someone shouted from the bridge. Multiple swarm signatures. They're coming out of hyperspace. Taeyang ran to his command chair. The main screen showed space tearing open as bioships emerged. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. This wasn't a raiding party. This was an assault fleet. All ships to battle stations. Taeyang commanded. Deploy fighter screens. Charge all weapons. The coalition fleet moved into formation. They had practiced this many times. But practice and real battle were very different things. The swarm ships were horrible to look at. Massive organic hulls covered in chitin armor. They moved like living creatures because they were living creatures. Each one was a monster designed to kill. They're targeting the civilian transports, Quan reported. Trying to get past our line. Intercept pattern Delta. Don't let them through. The battle began. Energy beams cut through space. Missiles streaked toward targets. The swarm fired back with bioplasma that could melt through hull armor. It was chaos. Taeyang's ship shook as a plasma bolt struck their shields. Damage report. Shields at 60%. Hull intact. Keep firing. Target their larger vessels. They destroyed 3 swarm ships. Then 5, then 10. But more kept coming. For everyone they killed, 2 more appeared. Commander, we can't hold this position, Quan said. We need to retreat. Taeyang knew he was right. They were losing. Again, always losing. All ships fall back to rally point Theta. Fighting retreat pattern. The coalition fleet began pulling back, firing as they went. They would live to fight another day. But how many more days did they have? As his ship turned to flee, Taeyang's sensors picked up something strange. A signal. It was faint, coming from the edge of the system where no one ever traveled. Quan, are you seeing this? Yes, sir. Unknown transmission. It's not swarm. It's not any coalition language I recognize, the signal repeated. A simple message in ancient trade speak. The language that all spacefaring species had used centuries ago. Can you translate it? Quan worked quickly. His face went pale. Sir, it says, we're coming. Hold the line. Who sent that? Identify the source. I can't. The signature doesn't match anything in our database. But Commander, Quan looked up with wide eyes. The signal strength suggests it came from beyond charted space. From dark territory. From where humans supposedly vanished 500 years ago. Taeyang felt something he hadn't felt in years. Something dangerous and foolish and necessary. Hope. Get us out of here, he ordered. And Quan? Find out everything you can about those humans. Everything. Behind them, the swarm continued their advance. But somewhere in the darkness between stars, something else was moving. Something the galaxy had forgotten. Something that remembered them. 2 weeks had passed since the signal. Taeyang hadn't told the council about it. They would think he was desperate and foolish. They would be right about the desperate part. Frontier Station Omega was the last military base between the swarm and the core worlds. It was old and poorly armed, but it was all they had left. Taeyang's fleet orbited the station, waiting for orders that might never come. Sir, we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures, said a young officer named Rena. She sounded nervous. Everyone was nervous these days. Large ones. The swarm? Taeyang stood from his chair. They weren't ready for another battle. They had barely survived the last one. No, sir. The signatures are different. Cleaner. More controlled. Rena's hands moved across her controls. They're coming from the dark sector, from where that signal originated. Taeyang's heart started beating faster. All 4 of them. All ships to alert status. Don't power weapons yet. Let's see who our visitors are. Space rippled. 3 ships emerged from hyperspace. They weren't like any vessels Taeyang had ever seen. Sleek metal hulls with sharp angles. No organic curves like swarm ships. No elegant designs like coalition vessels. These looked dangerous. Built for war, they're hailing us, Quan reported. Audio only. In ancient trade language, and put it through. A voice filled the bridge. It was calm and strong. Female. This is Captain Hana of the United Terran starship Indomitable. We received your distress calls. We heard you were having trouble. The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at the speakers like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. Terran, Quan whispered. That's another word for human. Taeyang found his voice. This is Commander Taeyang of the Galactic Coalition Defense Fleet. Who? What are you? We're humans, Commander. I know you probably thought we were extinct or myths or both. We get that a lot. The voice sounded almost amused. Request permission to dock. We should talk face to face. Taeyang looked at Quan. His tactical officer shrugged. They had nothing to lose. Permission granted. Bay 12. An hour later, Taeyang stood in the docking bay with a security team. He didn't know what to expect. The legends described humans as savage warriors. Monsters in the shape of thinking beings. The airlock opened. 4 figures walked through. They looked ordinary. 2 legs, 2 arms, heads with 2 eyes. They wore uniforms that seemed practical rather than ceremonial. But there was something in the way they moved. Confident, alert, like predators pretending to be civilized. The woman in front stepped forward. She was shorter than Taeyang, but somehow seemed larger. Her dark hair was pulled back. Her eyes were brown and sharp. Commander Taeyang. I'm Hana. She held out her hand in what Taeyang recognized as an ancient greeting gesture. He extended one of his own arms and clasped her hand. Her grip was firm, strong. These are my officers. Minho, Yuna, and Sora. Minho was tall and heavily built. He looked like he could break steel with his bare hands. Yuna was smaller with kind eyes but something hard underneath. Sora carried equipment cases and had oil stains on her uniform. "You're really human," Taeyang said. It was a stupid thing to say, but his mind was still trying to process what was happening. "Last time I checked?" Hana smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much war. "We need to talk about the swarm. Is there somewhere private?" They moved to a briefing room. Taeyang called in his senior staff. Everyone stared at the humans like they were ghosts come to life. 500 years, Taeyang said. "Where have you been?" "Fighting our own war." Hana activated a holographic display from a device on her wrist. Images appeared in the air. Human cities burning, fleets destroying each other. We had a civil war, nearly destroyed ourselves. Took us 4 centuries to rebuild, another 100 to remember we weren't alone in the galaxy. "You came back just in time," Quan said. "We're losing this war, badly. We know. We've been watching for 5 years. Hana pulled up tactical data about the swarm, studying them, learning their patterns. "They're tough, but they're not unbeatable. We've thrown everything at them," Taeyang said. "Nothing works." "That's because you're fighting them the wrong way." Minho spoke for the first time. His voice was deep. "You keep trying to use superior technology, smarter weapons. The swarm adapts too fast. They learn. Then how do you fight them?" asked Rina. Hana and Minho exchanged looks. Yuna smiled slightly. It was not a nice smile. "You fight them, stupid," Hana said. "You get close. You board their ships. You blow them up from the inside. You make them scared." "The swarm doesn't feel fear," Taeyang said. "Everything feels fear." Minho's eyes were cold. "You just have to teach them." Sora opened one of her cases. Inside was a weapon. It looked primitive compared to energy rifles, chemical propellant and metal bullets. "This," Sora said, "is a railgun. Old technology, very old. The swarm has no defenses against kinetic weapons because nobody uses them anymore. Too simple." But simple works. She pulled out more items. Explosive charges, boarding equipment, close combat weapons that made Taeyang's security team look nervous. "You want us to fight them in close combat?" Quan looked horrified. "That's suicide." "Maybe for you." Minho picked up one of the blades. He moved it through the air in a pattern that made it whistle. "We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We're really good at killing things up close." An alarm interrupted them. "The same alarm from 2 weeks ago. Swarm contacts," someone shouted. "Scout fleet. 12 ships. They're heading right for us." Taeyang ran to the bridge. The humans followed. They moved fast, smooth, like they had done this many times before. "Battle stations," Taeyang ordered. "Prepare to engage. Request permission to launch our fighters," Hana said. She was calm. Too calm for someone about to enter combat. "You have fighters?" 3 squadrons. They're small, fast, and our pilots are excellent at not dying." Taeyang wanted to say no, wanted to keep these mythical beings safe until he understood what they could do. But he needed every advantage. Permission granted. Hana spoke into her wrist device. Orders in a language Taeyang didn't understand. On the tactical display, small craft began launching from the human ships. They moved unlike any fighters he had ever seen. Aggressive, erratic, impossible to predict. The swarm ships approached. They were smaller than the assault fleet from before, but still dangerous. They fired bioplasma. Coalition ships returned fire. Then the human fighters hit them. It was beautiful and terrifying. The small craft dodged plasma fire that should have vaporized them. They got close to the swarm ships. Impossibly close. Then they opened fire with those primitive kinetic weapons, and the swarm ships started dying. "How are they doing that?" Quan stared at the display. "They're targeting weak points in the armor," Yuna explained. She had pulled up biological data on the swarm. "Every organic ship has vulnerabilities, joints, sensor organs, propulsion systems. You just have to get close enough to hit them." One human fighter took a direct hit. It spiraled out of control. Taeyang expected it to retreat. Instead, it accelerated toward a swarm ship. "What is that pilot doing?" "Winning," Minho said simply. The damaged fighter crashed into the swarm vessel's main sensor cluster. There was a bright explosion. Both ships disappeared in the blast. "He just killed himself," Rina shouted. "He saved his squadron," Hana corrected. Her voice was sad but steady. "That swarm ship would have killed 5 more of our fighters. Now it won't kill anyone. His choice. Taeyang didn't know what to say. The coalition avoided casualties, preserved every life. These humans threw themselves at death like it was nothing. The battle ended quickly. All 12 swarm ships were destroyed. Coalition forces had lost 3 vessels. The humans lost 7 fighters and 1 heavily damaged corvette. They were celebrating. On the human ships, Taeyang could see crew members cheering, laughing. They had just watched their comrades die and they were celebrating the victory. "I don't understand you," Taeyang said to Hana. "I know." She looked tired suddenly. "Old. You will. The swarm won't give you a choice. Will you help us? Really help us?" Hana was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "That's why we came back. Humans don't abandon allies. And whether you know it or not, Commander, you've been our allies for 500 years. We just forgot to stay in touch." She extended her hand again. This time it felt like more than a greeting. It felt like a promise. Taeyang took it. 3 months had changed everything. Frontier Station Omega was now filled with humans teaching coalition forces new ways to fight. Taeyang watched from the observation deck as alien soldiers trained with Sergeant Doyen in the main hangar. Doyen was shorter than most humans, but twice as fierce. He marched back and forth in front of the recruits, shouting in broken coalition common tongue. "Faster! The swarm not wait for you to be ready. They come and they eat you if you slow." An alien private stumbled during a combat drill. Doyen helped him up immediately. "Good. You fall, you get up. That is lesson. Always get up. Humans fall many times. We always get up." Quan stood beside Taeyang. "The troops are learning. But they're scared. Human methods are so aggressive." "Aggressive keeps you alive," came Hana's voice behind them. She had a habit of appearing silently. "Careful gets you killed." "Your people celebrate before battles," Taeyang said. "We mourn our dead. Those are opposite approaches, are they?" Hana joined them at the window. "We mourn too, but we celebrate being alive. Celebrate the fight, because if you go into battle already defeated in your mind, you've already lost." Below, Doyen was teaching the soldiers human war songs. The alien troops looked confused but started singing along. It was a strange sound. Alien voices trying to match human rhythms. "I've been reading human history," Taeyang admitted. "Your species has been at war for most of your existence. With each other, with your environment, with everything." "True enough." Hana didn't sound proud or ashamed. "Just matter of fact. We come from a hard world. Earth isn't gentle. It has predators, diseases, natural disasters. To survive there, you have to be tough. To thrive, you have to be tougher." "The medical scans Yuna ran on human biology," Quan said carefully. "They classified humans as apex predators from a death world." "Is that accurate?" "Depends on your definition," Hana shrugged. "We're omnivores. We can eat almost anything. We heal fast. We can run for days if we need to. We can survive in extreme temperatures. Our eyes can see in low light. We can throw things with incredible accuracy. We sweat to cool down, which means we never overheat during long fights." She pointed to the training soldiers below. "But the real advantage? We're stubborn. Humans don't know when to quit. It's our greatest strength and our biggest flaw." Taeyang thought about the fighter pilot who had crashed into the swarm ship. "You sacrifice yourself so easily." "Not easily. Never easily." Hana's voice became hard. "Every loss hurts. But we understand something you don't. Sometimes one death saves 100 lives. Sometimes you have to be willing to pay the price." An announcement interrupted them. Lieutenant Gina needed the commander on the flight deck. Taeyang excused himself and headed there. The flight deck was chaos. Human and coalition pilots worked side by side. Gina was a fighter ace, one of the best pilots humanity had. She was currently yelling at a Viridian pilot who had crashed his fighter during a training exercise. "What were you thinking?" Gina demanded. "You flew straight and level." "Straight and level means dead. But the flight manual says to maintain steady flight during attack runs," the pilot protested. "The flight manual is wrong. The manual was written by people who never fought the swarm." Gina pulled up a hologram. "Look, you fly like this, they hit you. You fly like this." The hologram showed a fighter weaving and spinning impossibly. "They miss. That's not flying. That's falling with style." "Exactly," Gina grinned. "If you're not a little out of control, you're too predictable." "Controlled chaos. That's how humans fly." Taeyang approached. "Lieutenant, a moment." Gina saluted casually. Human military discipline was strange. Informal but somehow still respectful. "Commander, how can I help?" I wanted to ask about the joint training. Is it working? Honestly? Your pilots are good, technically perfect, but they fly scared. They follow rules even when rules don't make sense. I'm trying to teach them to trust their instincts. And is it working? Gina smiled. Ask me after the next battle. That battle came sooner than anyone wanted. A priority alert went through the station. A colony world called Varus was under attack. Full swarm assault. They had maybe 12 hours before the planet fell. The war room filled quickly. Hana, Taeyang, and the senior staff from both species gathered around the tactical display. Varus has 3 million civilians, Quan reported, mostly children and elderly. The main population is in one city. Evacuation? Taeyang asked. Not enough time. We'd save maybe half. Then we defend the planet, Hana said simply. Against a full swarm fleet? An alien admiral shook his head. That's suicide. We should evacuate who we can and retreat. No. Taeyang surprised himself with the firmness in his voice. We hold, Hana is right. We defend the planet. The admiral looked shocked. Commander, that's not tactical thinking. That's emotional. Maybe, Taeyang admitted. But I'm tired of running. Tired of choosing which lives to save and which to abandon. The humans taught me something. Sometimes you have to fight even when the odds are bad. Hana nodded approval. We'll need a battle plan. Sora, what's the defensive situation on Varus? Sora pulled up data. Planetary shields. Old but functional. Some ground batteries. Not enough. The swarm will get through eventually. Then we make eventually as long as possible. Hana started sketching a plan. We position the fleet here and here. Draw their attention away from the population center. Human ships will run interference. Coalition forces provide long-range support. That puts your ships in the most dangerous position, Quan observed. That's where we work best. Minho cracked his knuckles. I'll lead the boarding teams. If we can capture even one swarm command ship, we can disrupt their coordination. Boarding a swarm ship? The admiral looked horrified. Inside one of those things? That's insane. Completely, Minho agreed cheerfully. That's why it'll work. They won't expect it. 8 hours later, the combined fleet arrived at Varus. The swarm was already there. 20 capital ships and hundreds of smaller vessels. They were hammering the planetary shields. All ships battle formation, Taeyang ordered. His voice was steady. Remember what we've learned. Be aggressive, be unpredictable, and for those who fall, we'll make their sacrifice count. The human ships moved forward first. They opened fire with those primitive kinetic weapons. Railgun rounds punched through swarm bioarmor. Missiles with chemical explosives detonated in critical locations. The swarm responded. Bioplasma lit up space. Ships on both sides started taking damage. Their main command ship is in the center, Hana reported. Minho, you're clear for boarding action. Copy that. Boarding teams away. Human assault shuttles launched from the fleet. They were covered in armor and moved fast. Swarm weapons tried to shoot them down. Most missed. A few hits. The damaged shuttles kept going anyway. One shuttle reached the swarm command ship. It didn't land. It crashed through the hull, breaching it like a bullet through flesh. Boarding Team Alpha is inside, Minho's voice came through the comm. Meeting resistance. Heavy resistance. This is fun. The word fun shocked Taeyang. They were inside a monster ship fighting for their lives, and Minho called it fun. Yuna, who was manning the medical station, saw his expression. Humans cope with fear differently than you do. We joke, we laugh. It's how we stay sane. The battle raged for hours. Coalition ships provided cover fire. Human fighters wove through swarm formations like angry insects. The planetary shields held. Then Minho's voice came through again. Found their central nerve cluster. Planting charges now. How bad is it in there? Hana asked. Lost 6 people. 12 injured. But we're still moving. A pause. Charges set. Extraction in 30 seconds. The assault shuttles that were still functional rushed back to the command ship. They grabbed Minho's teams and pulled away. Clear, Minho reported. Hit it. The swarm command ship exploded from the inside. It was massive and beautiful and terrible. When the command ship died, the rest of the swarm fleet hesitated. Just for a moment. But a moment was enough. All ships concentrate fire, Taeyang ordered. Push them back. The combined fleet pressed the advantage. The swarm started retreating, then fleeing. Within an hour, they had abandoned the attack on Varus entirely. They had won. The casualties were heavy. Coalition lost 40 ships. Humans lost 15. Minho's boarding teams lost 10 people out of 30. But 3 million civilians were alive. In the aftermath, Taeyang found Minho in the medical bay. He was injured but refused to lie down. "You saved those people," Taeyang said. "We all did." Minho winced as Yuna treated a burn on his arm. "That's the point, together. No species alone can beat the swarm. But together, maybe we have a chance." Taeyang realized something then. The legends of humans being unstoppable warriors were wrong. Humans weren't unstoppable. They got hurt, they died. They were scared, but they fought anyway. That was the real lesson. Not that humans didn't fear death, but that they fought despite their fear. "Teach us," Taeyang said. "Teach us to fight like you do." Minho smiled through the pain. "We've been teaching you for 3 months, Commander. You just now started learning." The War Council chamber was silent. Everyone stared at the holographic display showing what the long-range scanners had detected. 10,000 swarm ships. Maybe more. They were gathering at the edge of Coalition space, preparing for a final push toward the core worlds. "This is it," Admiral Hyun said. She commanded the human fleet now. 3 times larger than when they first arrived 6 months ago. "They're throwing everything at us. This will be the last battle. Either we stop them here or we lose everything." Taeyang looked at the numbers on his display. The Coalition had 400 ships. The humans had 50. "Against 10,000, the mathematics are clear," said a Viridian Council member. "We cannot win." "Then we'll change the mathematics," Hana said firmly. She had been promoted to Admiral after 3 major victories against the swarm. "We've developed a plan. Operation Defiant Stand." She activated a new display. It showed ship positions and movement patterns. "We use the asteroid field near the Crimson Nebula as cover. Force them to come at us through narrow passages. They can't use their numbers advantage in tight spaces." "That might work for the initial engagement," Taeyang admitted. "But eventually they'll flank us." "Surround us, let them." Admiral Hyun smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "That's when we hit them with everything we have." Minho stepped forward. He had scars now from the boarding action at Varus. "We're proposing something radical. We use civilian ships as decoys, stripped down, remote-controlled. Make the swarm think our fleet is larger than it is. Using civilian vessels?" The Viridian Council member looked horrified. "That's against every protocol." "Protocols won't matter if we're all dead," Hana said bluntly. "We need every advantage. Every trick. This isn't about fighting honorably. This is about surviving." The debate went on for hours. Some supported the plan. Others called it reckless, desperate, insane. Finally, Taeyang stood. "I support Operation Defiant Stand. We'll follow Admiral Hana's plan. Those who wish to evacuate may do so. Those who wish to fight, prepare your ships. We leave in 12 hours. Later that night, Taeyang found Hana alone in the observation deck. She was staring at the stars, holding a bottle of amber liquid. "Earth whiskey," she said, offering him the bottle. "It's tradition. Before a big battle, you share a drink with your comrades." Taeyang took the bottle. The liquid burned going down but left a warm feeling. "Do you think we can win?" "Honestly? I don't know." Hana took the bottle back and drank. "The odds are bad. Really bad. But humans have won impossible battles before, usually by being too stupid to realize we should lose." "I've been thinking about what makes humans different," Taeyang said. "It's not your strength or your weapons or even your tactics. Then what is it? You accept death. You're not trying to avoid dying. You're trying to make your death mean something. To die in a way that protects others." Hana was quiet for a long moment. "When I was young, Earth was at war. Humans killing humans. I lost my family in the fighting. My parents, my brother, my sister, all gone." She took another drink. "I learned then that death comes for everyone. The only choice we have is how we face it. Running or fighting. Alone or together. And you chose fighting. Every single day." She looked at him with tired eyes. "Tomorrow many of us will die. Maybe all of us. But the swarm will remember. They'll remember the species that refused to surrender. That fought until the very end. That's the legacy we leave. It's a hard legacy. It's the only one worth having." The combined fleet assembled at the Crimson Nebula. 450 real warships, 200 civilian vessels modified to look like warships. Everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. They came anyway. Taeyang's flagship took position at the center of the formation. Hana's ship, the Indomitable, positioned itself at the most dangerous point, the place where the swarm would hit first. "All ships report ready," Quan said. His voice was steady despite the fear Taiyang could see in his eyes. "Then we wait." Taiyang opened a channel to all ships, to all coalition and human forces. "Today we face an enemy that outnumbers us. That has driven us back for 30 years. They expect us to run, to hide, to surrender. They're wrong." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We are the last line of defense. Behind us are our homes, our families, everything we love. The humans taught us something important. It's not about avoiding death. It's about choosing what we die for. Today we choose to die for each other, for our worlds, for the future. Today we stand and fight. Today we are all warriors." Across the fleet, humans started singing, one of their war songs, deep voices and high voices mixing together. The coalition forces listened. Then slowly they joined in. The words were wrong, the pronunciation terrible, but the meaning clear. "We will not run. We will not hide. We stand together." "Swarm contacts," Rena called out. Multiple hyperspace signatures. Thousands of them. Space tore open. The swarm fleet emerged like a nightmare given form. So many ships that they blocked out the stars. Bioorganic hulls. Weapon ports. Sensor clusters. A fleet designed for one purpose, destruction. "Here they come," Hana's voice came through the comm. "All ships weapons free. Remember the plan. Make every shot count." The swarm advanced. They hit the decoy ships first, wasting fire on empty hulls. By the time they realized the trick, the real fleet opened fire. The asteroid field became a war zone. Energy beams, kinetic rounds, missiles, and bioplasma filled space. Ships exploded. Debris scattered. People died. "Their main force is trying to flank us," Quan reported. "Coming through Passage 7. Gina, take your wing and intercept." Taeyang's hands gripped his command chair. "Don't let them through." "Copy that, Commander." Wing 3 away. Gina led 50 fighters into the passage. They were outnumbered 5-1. Taeyang watched on the tactical display as they engaged. The fighters moved like Gina had taught them. Aggressive, unpredictable, chaotic. Half of Gina's wing didn't come back, but they stopped the flanking maneuver. "Multiple breaches on Deck 7, someone shouted. "Swarm boarding craft. Doyun, take your teams." Taeyang's ship was being boarded. The swarm was adapting, learning human tactics, already moving. Doyun's voice was calm. He had trained for this. "Let them come inside. We'll show them what humans do to invaders." The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides burned. The coalition lost 100 vessels in the first hour. Humans lost 20. The swarm lost 300, but they had thousands more. "We can't sustain this," Quan said. "We're losing too many ships." Taeyang knew he was right. They were winning small victories but losing the overall battle. The mathematics hadn't changed. They were still going to lose. Then Admiral Hyun's voice came through on the priority channel. "All human vessels, this is Hyun. Initiating final protocol." Taeyang's blood ran cold. "What final protocol?" "Every human ship is equipped with an antimatter core," Hana explained quietly. "We can overload them. Turn each ship into a bomb powerful enough to destroy everything within 5 kilometers. You're going to sacrifice your entire fleet? Not the entire fleet." Hana's ship changed course, heading toward the densest concentration of swarm vessels. "Just those of us in the worst positions. If we take out their capital ships, you can handle the rest." "Hana, no. There has to be another way." "There isn't." Her voice was sad but certain. "This is what humans do, Taeyang. We pay the price gladly for those we love, for those who will come after." 10 human ships broke formation. They accelerated toward the swarm capital vessels. The swarm tried to stop them. Failed. Couldn't understand why ships would deliberately fly into certain death. "Hana." Taeyang tried one more time. "It's been an honor, Commander." She paused. "Take care of my people. The ones who survive. Teach them to laugh sometimes. They forget to do that. I promise." The 10 ships reached their targets. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to tear open. Massive explosions consumed swarm vessels by the dozens. When the light faded, 100 swarm ships were simply gone, including the Indomitable. "All ships advance," Taeyang shouted through his grief. "Don't let their sacrifice be wasted." "Push forward!" The coalition fleet, inspired and horrified, attacked with new fury. The swarm fleet, shaken by the coordinated suicide attack, began to falter. They had never faced an enemy willing to destroy themselves just to hurt the swarm. They didn't understand sacrifice, couldn't comprehend it. It made them hesitate, and that hesitation cost them the battle. 6 hours later, it was over. The swarm fleet was destroyed or fleeing. The coalition had won, but the cost was terrible. 300 coalition ships lost, 35 human vessels destroyed, thousands of lives gone. Taeyang sat in his damaged command chair, surrounded by dead systems and injured crew. They had won, but it felt like losing, sir, Quan said softly. The swarm is in full retreat. They're leaving coalition space. How many did we lose? The number that came back made Taeyang's heart ache. So many names, so many lives, but they had saved billions more. He thought about Hana, about her smile, her strength, her certainty that some things were worth dying for. She had been right, and the galaxy would remember. 3 months after the battle, Taeyang stood before a wall covered in names. The memorial hall on Station Omega had been expanded 3 times to fit all the dead. Human names, alien names, Viridian names. Every species that had fought together. He found Hana's name near the top. Captain Hana, United Terran Starship Indomitable. Next to her were the names of her crew. All 300 of them. She would have hated this, came a voice behind him. Taeyang turned. Minho stood there wearing his dress uniform. He looked older now. They all did. War aged everyone. Hated what? Taeyang asked, being remembered like this. All formal and proper. Minho smiled sadly. Hana always said the best memorial was living well. Fighting hard. Laughing when you could. She'd want us celebrating, not mourning. Your people lost so much in this war. 35 ships. Thousands of lives, we did. Minho walked along the wall reading names. But we saved billions. That's the math that matters. Human math. 1 life for 1,000. It's worth it. I'm not sure I'll ever understand that calculation. You don't have to understand it. You just have to accept that we do. Minho stopped at another name, one of his boarding team members. This is Jinwoo. He died on that swarm command ship at Varus. He was 22 years old, wanted to be a teacher after the war. Instead, he's here. Taeyang placed one hand on Minho's shoulder. I'm sorry, don't be. He chose this. We all did. Minho looked at Taeyang. That's what you need to understand about humans. We choose every day to fight, to protect, to stand between the darkness and everyone else. It's not noble. It's not heroic. It's just what we do. A young officer approached. Commander Taeyang, Admiral. The ceremony is about to begin. They walked together to the main hall. It was filled with people. Coalition officials, military officers, civilians from the worlds they had saved, and humans. So many humans. The remaining human fleet had grown after the battle. Earth had sent more ships, more people. They weren't hiding anymore. They had returned to the galaxy as full members. Taeyang took his place at the podium. He had been promoted to Fleet Admiral, commanding all coalition defense forces. It was an honor he didn't want but accepted anyway. Thank you for coming, he began. Today we remember those who fell in the Battle of the Crimson Nebula. We remember their courage, their sacrifice. We remember what they fought for. He paused, looking at the crowd. For 30 years we believed humans were myths, legends from ancient times. Then they returned. And we learned the truth. Humans are not myths. They're not legends. They're just people. People who chose to fight when fighting seemed impossible. People who chose to stand when standing meant death. People who taught us that sometimes courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to fight despite it. Taeyang saw Yuna in the crowd. She had established a medical academy, training coalition doctors in human medicine. Next to her was young Chris, the alien medic she had befriended. He was now one of her best students. We owe them more than gratitude, Taeyang continued. We owe them action. The swarm is defeated but not destroyed. They've retreated to dark space, but they'll return. When they do, we must be ready, not as separate species, but as one unified force. The ceremony ended with military honors. Ships fired salutes into space. Names were read aloud. Families cried. Friends remembered. Afterward, Taeyang found himself in his office with Quan and several human officers. They were planning the future. Earth wants to establish permanent bases in coalition space, Doyun reported. He had chosen to stay as a training instructor. His students called him the hardest teacher in the galaxy. They also called him the best. They're offering full technology exchange, medical, military, cultural. And in return? Taeyang asked. Friendship, alliance. A promise that if Earth ever needs help, the coalition will come. Doyen shrugged. Humans believe in debts. You saved us once 500 years ago by letting us hide. Now we saved you. The debt is paid. What comes next is partnership. Some species are worried, Quan admitted. They see how effective humans are at war. They're afraid. Good, Sora said. She had returned from Earth with new technology to share. Fear keeps you alert. But fear without respect is just paranoia. We don't want to rule the coalition. We just want to fight beside you. What if we face something worse than the swarm? Asked Rena, who had been promoted to tactical officer. The deep space sensors detected strange signals before the battle. Things moving in dark territory. Then we face it together. Minho cracked his knuckles. That's what allies do. That's what family does. Family. Taeyang liked that word. Weeks turned to months. The reconstruction began. Shipyards built new vessels using combined human and coalition technology. The new ships were stronger, faster, better armed. Gina received command of the first joint ship, the Unity. It had a mixed crew, humans and aliens working side by side. She reported that the humans taught the aliens to be aggressive. The aliens taught the humans to be careful. Together, they were better than either species alone. Doyen's training programs expanded. Every coalition military academy now had human instructors. They taught tactics, strategy, but more importantly, they taught attitude, how to face fear, how to fight when fighting seemed pointless, how to win. Yuna's medical advances saved countless lives. Human medicine combined with alien biology knowledge created treatments that neither species could develop alone. She said Hana would have been proud. That saving lives mattered as much as taking them. Sora worked with coalition engineers. They learned from each other. Humans taught simplicity and reliability. Aliens taught precision and innovation. The new weapons and tools they created were remarkable. Taeyang visited the memorial hall often. He would stand before Hana's name and talk to it like she could hear him. Your people are doing well, he told her. They're teaching us, changing us, making us stronger. You'd be proud. One day, a young human woman approached him there. She wore a civilian uniform and carried flowers. Are you Admiral Taeyang? She asked. Yes. My sister was Captain Hana. I came from Earth to see where she died, to understand why she chose this. Taeyang didn't know what to say. What do you tell someone who lost family? Your sister saved us all, he finally said. She taught us courage, taught us to stand and fight. Without her, we would have lost everything. That sounds like Hana. The woman smiled through tears, always trying to save everyone. Even as a child, she couldn't stand watching others suffer. She was the bravest person I've ever met. She was scared all the time. The woman placed her flowers at the memorial. She told me once in a letter, said she was terrified every day, but she fought anyway because someone had to. Because if not her, then who? That was the real lesson, Taeyang realized. Courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was fighting despite fear. It was choosing to stand when you wanted to run. Choosing to act when inaction was easier. Humans weren't fearless warriors. They were scared people who fought anyway. That made them even more remarkable. A priority alert interrupted his thoughts. He rushed to the command center. The display showed something emerging from deep space. Multiple contacts. Unknown signatures. What is it? Taeyang demanded. We don't know. Quan's fingers flew across his controls. The quantum signature is unlike anything we've seen. Not swarm, not coalition, not human. Something else. Taeyang's blood ran cold. The warnings before the last battle. The strange signals. Something worse than the swarm was out there. All ships to alert status. Send word to Earth, tell them we might need reinforcements. A message came through his personal comm. It was from Minho, heard the news. My transport just landed. I brought my team. Whatever's coming, we face it together. Right? Taeyang smiled. Humans had taught the coalition many things. How to fight, how to sacrifice, how to win against impossible odds. But the most important lesson was simple. Never face the darkness alone. Right, Taeyang responded. Together, he looked at the tactical display. Unknown contacts approaching. Possibly hostile. Definitely dangerous, but this time the coalition wasn't afraid. They had allies now. Friends. Family. They had humans. And humans didn't know how to quit. All forces prepare for contact. Taeyang ordered. Whatever comes next, we stand ready. We stand together. We stand defiant. In the memorial hall, Hana's name glowed softly in the dim light. Around it were thousands of other names. All the people who had chosen to fight, who had chosen to stand. Their sacrifice had bought the galaxy time, peace, hope. But peace was always temporary. New threats emerged. New battles waited. That was fine because now the galaxy knew the truth. Humans weren't myths or legends, they were real. They were here. They were ready. And they brought everyone else up to their level. The darkness had learned to fear the light. Because that light was carried by beings too stubborn to die, too loyal to abandon their friends, too brave to surrender, human beings, and everyone who stood beside them. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Out in the darkness between stars, something was coming. Something ancient and terrible and hungry, but it would find a surprise waiting, not scattered, desperate species fleeing in fear, but a unified alliance, strong, determined, unbreakable, led by those who had been legends and chose to become heroes instead. Together, they would face whatever came next. Together, they would win, because that's what families do, and the galaxy had finally learned.